Hello everyone, it's Louise Chunn from welldoing.org with another Zoom interview. And today we have Sam Baker, who's a former journalist. She was the editor of Cosmopolitan and Red magazine, co-founder of digital women's platform The Pool with Lauren Laverne, novelist and now author of a resounding self-development volume, The Shift, subtitled How I Lost and Found Myself After 40 and You Can Too. So hi Sam, we know each other of old as we've worked in the same publishing companies over the years. It's good to see you again over Zoom. We were just talking before I started recording about how menopause, there seems to be a moment. Would you say that there is a kind of movement in the air at the moment?
Yeah, definitely a long overdue movement, I think. I mean, certainly, how long ago? 7-8 years ago, when I went into perimenopause, it was very much still one of those taboo things. And I think since then, Me Too has happened. You know, periods have become, you know, a subject of great conversation. It felt like menopause was still the only thing you couldn't talk about. But even in the year since I pitched the book and started writing it, it does feel like there's a sea change. And, you know, my experience in the few weeks since the book was published was that, you know, women are like yes, desperate for people to be talking about these things that they're feeling and don't quite know what to do with.
And, you know, there are different ways of looking at the menopause, aren't there? The sort of health and hormone side. How would you say you are looking at it?
I suppose I would say I'm not really looking at the menopause. I would, you know, the menopause it's one of the narrative threads in my book for sure, but it's, you know, this is not a book about the menopause. It's part memoir, it's part call to arms, if you like, manifesto, and it's also, I've interviewed more than 50 women about their experiences, not just of the menopause, but of life after 40, really, and how the way society views you changes and how that feels and how we're not really going to put up with that anymore. So menopause is a thread just as much as, you know, looking at how the media treats older women is a thread. You know, it's a thing that happens to 51% of the population over 40, mainly over 40. But very many women I spoke to had explored therapy or gone into therapy in their late 40s or 50s, which was exactly my experience too.
Yes, well, of course, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, Sam, when I read your book, is that there's a great quote in which you say that before you went into therapy, you would not have had therapy if your life had depended upon it. And I thought
that it probably did.
A splendid quote. And I thought, how can I resist asking you some questions about that? And I wasn't surprised to read you say that. I'd always kind of got the impression from you that, you know, I mean, in a very generalized, you know, probably, you know, vague way, but I had got the impression that you were perfectly happy with the way things were with yourself and with your life, and you were not looking for any explanations. And then what changed your mind? Just for people who haven't read your book, it would be good if you would share a bit of that story.
Well, I would obviously like it if they would read the book, so I won't share too much. Well, just to cut straight to the chase, I had been in my teens. I was in an abusive relationship. Once I finally extracted myself from that relationship, which took a while, I did what very many people do, and I shelved it as far away as I possibly could. And I think the next 30 years of my life were characterized by, you know, busy, go, move as fast as you can, in order not to have to think about anything. And I'm very fortunate. I met my husband quite early in my 20s. He is not much short of a saint, and he has supported me through years of chaos and, you know, through my career, which, as yours was demanding, and I threw myself at it head first and put it first, actually. then in my mid-40s, several things happened. I mean, I always knew it was there. I didn't know all of the incidents. I knew, I knew what had happened to me, but there was a lot of stuff locked away. So, there were lots of, I mean, in the kind of contemporary parlance, I was constantly triggered and didn't even know what triggering was, and I was also really hostile to therapy or anything that I thought was woo-woo, which obviously I now see as completely defensive. But at the time, I remember I had some physical treatment, which was connected to the abuse as well. And it was a kind of an itch scratch therapy. And the doctor, I went to see a dermatologist, and then he sent me to a psychiatrist just literally to break the itch scratch cycle. And that would have been when I was on Cosmopolitan. And that psychiatrist gently tried to suggest to me that there was more going on here. It's glaringly obvious, and I'm quite embarrassed now how obvious it is. And I was extremely like, I'm done here. So looking back, I can see, that was I protecting myself? Was I hiding? All of those things. In my mid-40s, I had some more, a couple more operations that were again connected right back to what had happened in my teens. I've had a lot of gynecological problems in my life, and that was at the point just before I left Red. So I'd had these operations, and something happened at work, which you and I can talk about off camera, but I don't really want to talk about on camera. And it literally was the classic saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just snapped and I resigned, and that was it. And it was, I think now it was almost like an explosion of the anger that had been brewing in me since I was about 18 years old. And I say all of this with obviously the hindsight given to me by a wonderful therapist, and I wouldn't have been able to have this coherent-ish conversation 4 or 5 years ago. But very fortunately for me, I had a really good relationship with the gynecologist who I'd been seeing, who'd been helping me. And so she was the person who helped me with my menopause. And I went to her and said, I think I need to talk to somebody, And she was like, whoa, this is an interesting development, because I've mentioned this at least twice before, and you've at best taken the phone number I've given you, shoved it in the bottom of your bag, and I know that it's never come out. And it's probably been shaken straight into the bin when you got home, which is true. So she referred me to a psychiatrist, which was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And he immediately, after an hour or so's consultation, referred me for EMDR treatment and CBT for PTSD. Sorry, how many acronyms can you get in one sentence? But I'm not sure whether that even answered your question, to be honest. But
well, no, it does. That's your experience of therapy. And so
how I got there.
For post-traumatic stress disorder using EMDR. And how did you find that experience?
Well, I mean, you know me a bit, so you won't surprise you if I say that I went into that approach that therapy very goal oriented, and my approach to the therapist was Tessa Fain, and I know she won't mind me using her name because she allowed me to use her name in the book. And she, I went in very much, okay, how long is this going to take? I want to be out here in 6 weeks. And she was very good with me, because at no point did she tell me that I would be there 18 months. But at the same time, she never led me to believe I wouldn't be. The first time I went, I hated it and didn't want to go back. But, I actually found the EMDR itself, which we did with the little electronic paddles. Sorry, you've got an expert audience, and I'm talking about little electronic paddles. No,
this is for the world. It's not for therapists. It's for the general public who are
Yes.
interested in the experience
Okay.
of therapy, because most of them have never done anything like it.
Mm.
So the little electronic paddles is absolutely fine.
Yeah. I mean, when he said, when the psychiatrist referred me for EMDR, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what he was talking about. I mean, he gave me an overview, but so I went away and Googled it and thought, well, how can that possibly work? But combined with CBT, and Tessa was very tolerant of my quirks, shall we say? Yeah, it was very traumatic. I can't, if anybody's thinking about it, I can't pretend it wasn't, but it was utterly life-changing. I'm fully a different person because of it. But that's probably because the things that, were locked away and jumping out at me when I least didn't expect it, metaphorically, are not now doing that because they can't.
Mm.
So I'm not, for instance, I was very hypervigilant. I was excessively watchful of people's expressions and behavior and constantly trying to fix things, and so of course I don't do those things anymore. I mean, when I first went to Tessa, she said what EMDR will do is it will open think of it as rooms in your head and open, and Tessa, I apologize if I'm getting this wrong. It will open the rooms, the cupboards where it's all locked away in your brain. It will open them and we'll put it all on the shelf where you can see it. And I went home and said to my husband, holy shit, I don't want to be able to see it. I don't want to look at it day in, day out. That's horrific. But actually, that's what it did. And it is great because it's just there. It's just a thing now. It's just something that happened to me. And I would not have been able in any way to write about it or talk about it as I am now. I mean, I have to say, I do find this quite stressful, but partly because this isn't the first time as well. So now I've got a bit of emotional build-up of having talked about it. But I would not have been able to talk about it to anybody, barely even my husband, without that.
Without having had the treatment, you mean?
Yes, yeah.
And it's finished now. You're not seeing her anymore.
No, it finished. I don't know, a couple of years ago, maybe a bit more, 2 or 3. I mean, I'm sure I could have kept going, but I would have happily kept going. In fact, ironically, by the time she said, well, I think you're safe to go it alone, I was like, I don't really want to now. I quite like this, coming every week and having someone to talk to. But she's a specialist, and there are people who need her.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam, for sharing that, because as you can imagine, not everybody wants to talk about traumatic things that have happened in their life and how they overcome them. But I do think that it's very valuable to people to know that there are things like EMDR, which are considered very highly considered. They're NICE recommended. EMDR is NICE recommended for PTSD. But also for talking about something really personal. As you say, I don't know you very well, but I certainly know the old Sam Baker would not have said any of that story, in front of a camera. So thank you very much for that. So I think we're probably winding to the end. So just say, what would you like people to come away with from the book? So people, between say 45 and 55, either coming up to that point in their life, or I guess post 40, coming up to the realization that they are halfway through their life probably, because that is something that is quite an existential moment when you realize that that was halfway through your parents' life, or it's just in all likelihood one isn't going to go on forever. And at 40 these days, one still feels pretty young. So what would you like somebody in that age range and post 40 to come and get from your book?
Well, one of the things that's been really interesting to me actually is how young the audience has gone, and that I've had women in their 30s saying, in their very early 30s, saying, how reassuring they found, even though they found some of it a bit scary and unpleasant, because, you know, some of it is a bit scary and unpleasant, how reassuring they found it that, you know, older women were saying, well, you know, this might happen. But on the other side of this happening, there's this. So I set out really to write the book that I wished that I'd been able to read when I was 46. So not a book that told me what the different sorts of HRT were and how to get them, but a book that said, you will reach this kind of existential point in your life, and it's really confusing because all of a sudden everything shifts around you. And, you know, just here are some other women's experiences, here is my experience, here's some really, because there is some really grim stuff in that kind of first half of the book, and actually here are all the benefits, because I think we frame aging so negatively, and it's all framed in what you're losing. It's never framed about what you're gaining. And so I suppose that's what I would like people to take, that actually, you know, you gain as much as you lose. It's just different.
It's at different points, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the way in is bad, and on the way out is much better.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, the way in is no fun at all. And I've had so many, since the book was published, I've had so many messages from women saying, oh, you know, they didn't know about the mental health symptoms of menopause, and I didn't when I was perimenopausal. Yeah, everybody knows about hot flushes and that, but they don't know about the depression and the anxiety and the loss of confidence. So just that sense that you're not going mad I would have loved to have known that at 46, for sure.
Thank you so much, Sam. That's really great. I'm going to now hold up your book so people can say, this is what it looks like. Thanks very much, and good luck with the sales, and see you soon.
Thank you for having me.